I have run this depot for 14 years. 14 years of automated inbound shipments, pressure readings, manifest checks, and form filings. 14 years of knowing every valve and every statute and every subclause in the Calder's Reach Corridor Charter by the particular weight it carries in my hands. You do a thing that long, alone, on a moon that nobody visits unless they need to move grain through it, and the thing stops being a job. It becomes what you are. The depot is not a place I work. It is the shape my days take, the frame that holds whatever I still am. I tell you this so you understand what happened when I cracked open drum 14 on the inbound manifest and found something that was not grain. The shipment came in on the 0400 automated run. 12 drums of nutrient concentrate, pre-sealed, labeled in the standard font that I have read so many times I stopped seeing it years ago. Inert organic compound, / Calder's Reach outer ring, Depot 7 Marin, do not breach seal without authorization. I run them through the intake scanner, log the pressure readings, rack them in the hold. Standard. I have done it 2,000 times. Drum 14, read wrong. Not alarmingly wrong. Not wrong enough that a scanner catches it and flags it and sends a notification up the line. Wrong in the small way that 14 years of pressure readings teaches you to notice. A variance of 11 pascals on the interior gauge. The kind of differential that means the drum is breathing. Inert compounds do not breathe. I stood there for a moment with my hand on the rack and my eyes on the gauge, and something moved in me that I do not have a clean name for. Not quite dread, not quite hope. Something in between that has no word in the standard tongue. I authorized the breach myself, logged it, time-stamped it, pulled the seal tool from the rack. If you are going to do something that matters, you do it correctly. The seal broke with a hiss of equalized pressure and a smell of recycled air and something organic underneath. Warm, alive, the unmistakable signal of a body that had been keeping itself going in an enclosed space for a very long time. She was curled at the bottom of the drum, small, ashen-skinned in the way the Veth are, that particular gray that is not the gray of sickness but of their kind, smooth and faintly luminous in depot lighting, silver eyes. She blinked at the light like something that had decided not to expect light anymore, and was recalibrating. Her clothing was a single piece of worn fabric, pale at the hem where it had been washed many times. Her hands were tucked under her chin. She looked at me. She did not cry. She did not move. She looked at me with those silver eyes and waited, the way small things wait when they have already spent everything they had on surviving, and there is nothing left to spend on reaction. I said, "Come here." She came. I got her out of the drum and onto the depot floor, and I checked her over the way you check anything that has been sealed in an inert compound container for what the transit log told me was 36 hours and 20 minutes. Her temperature was low, her breathing was shallow but regular, no visible injury. I gave her water from my own flask, heated ration concentrate from the break room, and my spare thermal vest, which came down to her ankles. She ate, she drank, she did not speak. I logged every action as I took it, time-stamped. I have been doing this long enough to know that what you do not write down does not exist, and what does not exist can be taken from you. Then I sat down at my terminal and looked at the clock. The Colonial Reclamation Authority runs a quarterly audit sweep of all Calder's Reach outer ring depots. I knew the date. I have always known the date, the way you know the pressure readings and the statute numbers, not because you are afraid, but because knowing is what keeps the depot running. The sweep was 6 hours out. Under Frontier Reclamation Statute 7, any unregistered biological material found on a depot manifest during an active audit window becomes CRA property pending classification. Classification for an unregistered child of a non-enrolled species would take approximately 8 months. I knew what an 8-month CRA biological hold looked like. I had seen the reports. I was not going to let that happen. I want to be precise about what I did in the next 5 hours, because people have asked me since, and I want the record to be accurate. I did not panic. I did not call anyone to ask for help. I did not do anything that was not fully within my authority as a licensed depot operator under the Calder's Reach Corridor Charter and its 17 amendments. I filed a biological discovery report under Colonial Compact Protocol 9, subsection 4, the provision that covers living biological material found in transit consignments, time-stamped at 0447. I filed a provisional welfare hold under Compact Accord Subclause 7, citing the child's species as VETH and her condition as requiring immediate stabilization. That subclause carries a 72-hour protection window that freezes all reclamation statute claims during active medical assessment, timestamped at 0451. I filed a species registration cross-reference with the VETH Resettlement Coordination Office on Calder's Primary, noting the child's discovery location, physical condition, and the relevant protocol numbers. I requested immediate assignment of a resettlement contact and noted the pending CRA sweep, timestamped at 0503. I filed a manifest amendment classifying Drum 14 as a biological discovery event and removing it from the inert compound inventory, timestamped at 0509. I filed a depot incident report with the Corridor Charter Authority, noting the discrepancy in the original shipping manifest. The drum had been labeled incorrectly, which is a separate infraction against the shipping house that originated the consignment, and a matter I was required by statute to document, timestamped at 0512. In the break room, between filings, I checked on her. She had finished the ration concentrate. She was sitting on the floor with her back against the heating unit, asleep, with the thermal vest pulled around her like a cocoon. Her breathing had steadied. Her color, that particular VETH ashen gray, was warmer than it had been. I went back to the terminal. The CRA sweep team arrived at 0930, 3 of them, in standard issue gray, with a licensed auditor and 2 field officers. They came to the gate with their scanning equipment and their clipboards, and the particular expression CRA personnel wear when they expect a routine depot run, which is a kind of low-grade boredom, sharpened slightly at the edges by authority. I met them at the gate with my filing receipts. All 6 documents, time-stamped, cross-referenced, fully compliant with the Calder's Reach Corridor Charter, the Colonial Compact Accord, and Frontier Reclamation Statute 7's own exemption provisions, which are in subsection 12, and which most people have never read because they are written in the particular dense subordinate clause language that the Charter Commission used in the Third Amendment cycle, and which I had memorized in my 4th year at this depot, because it was a slow winter and I had time. The auditor read them. He read them for a long time. I stood at the gate and waited. I have stood at this gate in weather that would stop most people's blood, and waited out equipment failures and transit delays, and once a 3-day communication blackout that nobody from the authority bothered to explain afterward. I know how to wait. I have made a life out of it. He said, the welfare hold freezes reclamation claim. I said, yes. He said, you filed before the sweep window opened. I said, I filed when I found her. That is what the protocol requires. He looked at me over the documents for a moment, then he said, the VETH contact. You've already reached them. They acknowledged receipt of the cross-reference at 07118. Response time was impressive. I said it without particular emphasis, because it was a fact, not a point I was making. The VETH Resettlement Office had responded in 2 hours and 15 minutes. I did not know if that was typical. I suspected it was not. The auditor signed off the sweep exemption at 0947. The 3 of them left. I went back to the break room. She was awake. She was standing at the narrow window that looks out over the eastern approach, where the dust runs flat and red all the way to the horizon, and she was watching it the way you watch something you did not expect to see again. I stood in the doorway. She turned and looked at me with those silver eyes, and said the only word she had said since I lifted her out of the drum. She said it quietly, the way the VETH say things that matter, without decoration, without preamble, the word alone in the air between us. She said stayed. The VETH Resettlement Coordinator arrived at the depot at 1340, overland from the primary settlement, and she was gentle and thorough, and she knew the child's family by name. I filed the handover documentation at 1402, time-stamped. I have run this depot for 14 years. I know every valve, and every statute, and every pressure reading. I built this competence for a reason I could not have told you when I started. Now I know what it was for.